Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel Legal Decipher. In the previous video, we had discussed about chapter 32 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. If you have not seen that video, you can go and check it. The link is in the description below. In today's video, we are going to discuss about chapter 33 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. We'll go through the chapter and try to understand how the criminal procedure code is followed and how the criminal codes work. So if you are new here, please like and subscribe to my channel so you can get the video notifications. So let's get started. So today we're going to learn chapter 33. This is probably the most important chapter for criminal practitioners. It talks about provisions as to bail and bonds. So let's quickly start from section 436. It says, in what cases bail to be taken? So section 436 mainly talks about bailable cases in which bails can be taken. So when any person other than a person accused of a non-bailable offense. So the persons who are accused of non-bailable offenses are not regarded in this section. They are not dealt with by this section. We will read about them in the next section, that is section 437. Now under 436, the persons who are accused of bailable offenses or the persons who are not accused of any non-bailable offense, if they are arrested or detained without any warrant by any officer in charge of a police station, or appears or is brought before a court and is prepared at any time while in the custody of such officer or any stage of the proceedings before such court to give bail, then such person shall be released on bail. So whenever that person is produced or he appears by himself before a court or any other police officer who has arrested him without any warrant for any case that is bailable, okay, so in that case that person will be released on bail, provided that such officer or court, if he or it thinks fit, may and shall, if such person is indigent and is unable to furnish surety, then instead of taking bail from such person, discharge him on his executing a bond without sureties for his appearance as hereinafter provided. So if that person fails to furnish any security, then also he will be released on executing a bond without sureties, on condition that he will appear as and when called for. Now the explanation says that where a person is unable to give bail within a week of the date of his arrest, it shall be a sufficient ground for the officer or the court to presume that he is an indigent person for the purposes of this proviso. So the time period for determining whether the person is indigent or not is 1 week. If he is unable to give bail within a week, then he will be considered an indigent person and he will be dealt with according to the proviso of subsection 1. Now provided further that nothing in this section shall be deemed to affect the provisions of subsection 3 of section 116 or section 446A. So it is further provided that nothing in this section shall be deemed to affect the provisions of these sections and subsections. So these sections and subsections are immune. Now subsection 2 says, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1 where a person has failed to comply with the conditions of the bail bond as regards the time and place of attendance, the court may refuse to release him on bail. So if he fails to meet the conditions of the bail bond regarding the time and place of attendance, then the court may also refuse to release him on bail when on a subsequent occasion in the same case he appears before the court or is brought in custody, and any such refusal shall be without the prejudice of the powers of the court to call upon any person bound by such bond to pay the penalty thereof under section 446. So say for example what happens, this person is released on bail and subsequently he fails to comply with the bail bonds regarding the time and place of attendance, then when such person is subsequently brought before the court or if he appears by himself before the court, then the court may refuse to release him on bail, but that refusal will be without the prejudice to the power of the court to call upon any person bound by such bond to pay a penalty thereof. Now let's move on to section 436A. It says maximum period for which an under trial prisoner can be detained. So what will be the maximum period for which a prisoner who is under trial can be detained? So when a person has, during the period of investigation, inquiry or trial under this code or any other law regarding an offense that does not attract the punishment of death, and if he has undergone detention for a period extending up to one half of the maximum period of imprisonment specified for that offense under that law, he shall be released by the court on his personal bond with or without sureties. So once that person has gone through one half of the maximum period of imprisonment that is specified for that offense, then he shall be released by the court on his personal bond with or without sureties, provided that court may, after hearing the public prosecutor and for reasons to be recorded in writing, order the continued detention of such person for a period longer than one half of the said period, or release him on bail instead of the personal bond with or without sureties. So the court may also, after hearing the public prosecutor, or if there is a reason to be recorded in writing, continue the detention for a period that is longer than such one half period that is mentioned in the foregoing paragraph. So it is entirely upon the discretion of the court whether to release him or not. Provided further that no such person shall in any case be detained during the period of investigation, inquiry or trial for more than the maximum period of imprisonment provided for the said offense. So whatever may be the case, whether the court releases him or he continues his detention, that detention will not continue after the maximum period of imprisonment that is provided for such offense that he is facing the trial against. Now explanation says that in computing the period of detention under this section for granting bail, the period of detention passed due to delay in proceedings caused by the accused shall be excluded. So the period of detention that is passed due to delay in proceedings caused by the accused, so that delay is caused by the accused and that is why the period of detention passed, then that shall be excluded in computing the period of detention under this section for granting bail. Now let's move on to section 437 that talks about when bail may be taken in case of non-bailable offense. So this section mentions those cases that are non-bailable offense and the procedure of taking bail in those cases. So it says that when any person accused of or is suspected of commission of any non-bailable offense and he is arrested or detained without warrant by an officer in charge of a police station, or appears or is brought before the court other than the High Court or Court of Sessions, then he may be released on bail. But so there are two exceptions. Now it is the power of the magistrate. We are talking about the magistrate here because it is written that other than a High Court or Court of Sessions. So these two courts are excluded here. We are only talking about the magistrate. So whenever any person who is accused of or suspected of any commission of any non-bailable offense and he is either arrested or detained without warrant by an officer in charge of the police station, or he appears or is brought before the court, then in that case he may be released on bail, but such person shall not be released if there appear reasonable grounds for believing that he has been guilty of an offense punishable with death or imprisonment for life. So when such person is thought to have committed anything that attracts a punishment of death or imprisonment for life, then in that case that person will not be given a bail under this section. And also such person shall not be released if such offense is a cognizable offense and he had been previously convicted of an offense punishable with death, imprisonment for life, or imprisonment for 7 years or more, or he had been previously convicted of 2 or more occasions of a cognizable offense punishable with imprisonment for 3 years or more, but not less than 7 years. So the bail will also not be given if that person has a history of committing any offense that is punishable with death, imprisonment for life, or imprisonment for 7 years or more. Or he may have been convicted previously on 2 or more occasions of cognizable offenses. So in these cases, that person will not be released on bail, provided that the court may direct that a person referred to in clause 1 or clause 2 be released on bail if such person is under the age of 16 years or is a woman or is sick or infirm. So these people are excluded by this section. These people will be eligible to get a bail even under section 437. Who are they? They are any person who is under the age of 16 years, or if she is a woman, or if the person is sick or an infirm. Now provided further that the court may also direct that a person referred to in clause 2 be released on bail if it is satisfied that it is just and proper so to do for any other special reason. So special reasons are also included. He may get a bail for any special reason. Provided also that the mere fact that an accused may be required for being identified by witnesses during investigation shall not be sufficient ground for refusing to grant bail if he is otherwise entitled to be released on bail and gives an undertaking that he shall comply with such directions as may be given by the court. So if the person who is to be released on bail, that accused person, is complying with the provisions of bail and he is undertaking that he will comply with such directions as given by the court, then on that case, if he is otherwise competent to get a bail, then he will not be kept into custody just for the reason that he will be needed for being identified by witnesses during the investigation. That alone will not be a sufficient ground. Okay. Now provided also that no person shall, if the offence alleged to have been committed by him is punishable with death, imprisonment for life, or imprisonment for 7 years or more, be released on bail by the court under this subsection without giving an opportunity of hearing to the public prosecutor. So it is also provided that no person who is alleged to have committed an offence that is punishable with death or imprisonment for life or for imprisonment of 7 years or more, then he will not be released on bail by the court under this subsection without the public prosecutor is given a sufficient opportunity for hearing. So first the court will hear the public prosecutor as to what he has to say, whether he objects to such bail application or not, and only after hearing the public prosecutor the court will give such order. Now if it appears to such officer or court at any stage of the investigation, inquiry or trial as the case may be, that there are not reasonable grounds for believing that the accused has committed a non-bailable offence. So if the police officer or the court, whatever may be the case, they understands that this person has not committed any non-bailable offence, but there are sufficient grounds for further inquiry into his guilt, then the accused shall, subject to the provision of the section 446A and pending such inquiry, be released on bail. So if there is no apparent commission of non-bailable offence, but there are sufficient grounds to further inquiry into his guilt, then on that case also that person, that accused person, will be released on bail or at the discretion of such officer or court on the execution by him of a bond without sureties for his appearance as hereinafter provided. So if that person is ready to provide a bond, then on that bond he will be released on bail. Now, subsection 3 says, when a person accused or suspected of the commission of an offence punishable with imprisonment which may extend to 7 years or more, or it is an offence that is classified under chapter 6, chapter 16, chapter 17 of the Indian Penal Code, or it is a abatement, conspiracy, or attempt to commit any such offense that is classified here, then in that case, that person who is accused or suspected is released on bail under subsection 1. If he is so released, then the court shall impose the following conditions. What are those conditions? That such person shall attend in accordance with the conditions of the bond executed under this chapter. So he will have to follow the conditions that are provided to him through that bond. That such person shall not commit an offence similar to the offence of which he is accused or suspected of the commission of which he is suspected. So he will not commit any further offence of that like nature that he is suspected of or he is accused of. And that such person shall not directly or indirectly make any inducement, threat, or promise to any person acquainted with the facts of the case so as to dissuade him from disclosing such facts to the court or to any police officer or tamper with the evidence. So he will not directly or indirectly induce, threat, or promise any person, any witness, or he will not tamper with the evidence. Then in these conditions, if they are fulfilled by such accused person, then only that person will be granted a bail under this subsection, and may also impose in the interest of justice such other conditions as it considers necessary. So the court is at liberty to put any conditions as it thinks fit. An officer or a court releasing any person on bail under subsection 1 or 2 shall record in writing his or its reasons or special reasons for so doing. So the reasons will be recorded. Any court which has released a person on bail under subsection 1 or subsection 2 may, if it considers it necessary to do so, direct that such person be arrested and commit him to custody. So the court will also have the power to arrest and commit the person to custody after releasing him on bail, if he considers that it is necessary to do so. If in any case triable by magistrate, the trial of a person accused of any non-bailable offence is not concluded within a period of 60 days from the date fixed for taking evidence in the case, then such person shall, if he is in custody during the whole of such period, be released on bail to the satisfaction of the magistrate, unless for reasons to be recorded in writing the magistrate otherwise directs. So the maximum time period for detaining the accused into custody during the period of investigation is 60 days. The maximum period is 60 days. After that, the magistrate, if satisfied, will release that person on bail. And subsection 7 says that if at any time after the conclusion of the trial of a person accused of a non-bailable offence and before judgment is delivered, the court is of opinion that there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accused is not guilty of any such offence, then it shall release the accused if he is in custody on the execution by him of a bond without sureties for his appearance to hear judgment delivered. So the court may also do that. It may at any time after the conclusion of the trial release the person on bail even if he is accused of a non-bailable offence, if that person, that accused person, has executed a bond without sureties for his appearance to hear judgment that will be delivered against him. But the court will only do so if it is of the opinion that there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accused is not guilty of any such offence. Let's move on to section 437A. It talks about bail to require accused to appear before next appellate court. So before conclusion of the trial and before disposal of the appeal, the court trying the offence or the appellate court, as the case may be, shall require the accused to execute bail bonds with sureties to appear before the higher court. So before such accused appears before the higher court, it will have to execute bail bonds with sureties. And when such court issues notice in respect of any appeal or petition filed against the judgment of the respective court, and such bail bonds shall be in force for 6 months. So that bail bonds will be in force for 6 months. If such accused fails to appear, the bond stand forfeited and the procedure under section 446 shall apply. So the bond will forfeit if the accused fails to appear. Now section 438 talks about direction for grant of bail to persons apprehending arrest. So this section deals with anticipatory bail. What is an anticipatory bail? When the person who is to take the bail is apprehending an arrest, he thinks that he will be arrested regarding a particular allegation. So when any person has reasons to believe that he may be arrested on an accusation of having committed a non-bailable offence, he may apply to the High Court or the Court of Sessions for a direction under this section, and that court may, if it thinks fit, direct that in the event of such arrest, he shall be released on bail. So sections 438 and 439 are entirely dealt by the Court of Sessions and the High Courts. Now, a person who is apprehending an arrest for a non-bailable case, he may, before the arrest, we must understand that the provisions of section 438 will apply only before the arrest. Once the person is arrested, he cannot move to any court under section 438. So 438 is only applicable as long as the person is not arrested. So if he is apprehending arrest, he thinks that he will be arrested, but he is actually not arrested yet, then in that case he will move before the Court of Sessions or the High Court as he thinks preferable. And if the court thinks fit that he has submitted a proper bond and he has acknowledged to abide by the conditions that are to be put forward in that same bond, then he will be released on bail. So when the police will arrest him, he will show the order of such anticipatory bail and he will be released at once. Now when the High Court or the Court of Sessions makes a direction under subsection 1, it may include such conditions in such directions in the light of the facts of the particular case as it may think fit, including a condition that the person shall make himself available for interrogation by a police officer as and when required, a condition that the person shall not directly or indirectly make any inducement, threat or promise to any person who is acquainted with the facts of the case so as to dissuade him from disclosing such facts to the court or to any police officer. Also a condition that the person shall not leave India without the previous permission of the court, and such other conditions as may be imposed under subsection 3 of section 437 as if the bail were granted under that section. So when the High Court or the Court of Sessions grants an anticipatory bail, the court also puts forward some conditions or directions with that anticipatory bail. So what are those conditions? The conditions include that such person shall make himself available whenever he is to be interrogated by a police officer, whenever required. Also a condition is imposed on that person that he will not directly or indirectly by any means threaten, induce or promise any person who is acquainted with the facts and circumstances of the case so as to dissuade him from disclosing any fact to the police officer or court. Also a condition will be imposed on that person that you will not leave the territories of India without the previous permission of the court, and the court may also put such other conditions as may be imposed under section 437 subsection 3. And if such person is thereafter arrested without warrant by an officer in charge of a police station on such accusation and is prepared either at the time of arrest or at any time while in the custody of such officer to give bail, then he shall be released on bail. And if a magistrate taking cognizance of such offence decides that a warrant should be issued in the first instance against that person, he shall issue a bailable warrant in conformity with the directions of the court under subsection 1. So this will be the procedure. Whenever he will be arrested, he will be released on bail according to such anticipatory bail order. And the magistrate who is taking cognizance of such offence will decide that whether a warrant should be issued in the first instance against such person or not, and he shall issue a bailable warrant in conformity with the provisions of subsection 1. Now let's move on to section 439 that talks about special powers of High Court or Court of Sessions regarding bail. So a High Court or Court of Sessions may direct that any person accused of an offence and in custody be released on bail, and if the offence is of the nature specified in section 437 subsection 3, then he may impose any condition which is considered necessary for the purposes that are mentioned in that subsection, and that any condition imposed by a magistrate when releasing any person on bail be set aside or modified. So the provisions of section 439 are special powers of the High Court and the Court of Sessions. These courts only exercise this provision, and they may release any person on bail, whatever may be the accusation against them. So the powers of High Court and Court of Sessions under section 439 are huge. They can release any person and upon any condition as they may think fit, and that order will also set aside any magistrate order that was previously prevailing upon such accused person, provided that the High Court or the Court of Sessions shall, before granting bail to any person who is accused of any offence which is triable exclusively by the Court of Sessions, or which, though not so triable, is punishable with imprisonment for life, give notice of the application for bail to the public prosecutor. So the public prosecutor will also be engaged in this case, and notice will be sent to him, unless it is for reason to be recorded in writing of opinion that it is not practicable to give such notice. Now, a High Court or Court of Sessions may direct that any person who has been released on bail under this chapter be arrested and committed before him to custody. So, any person who is released on bail by the provisions of section 439 by the High Court or the Court of Sessions, that accused person may again be taken into custody by the same court. Section 440 talks about amount of bond and reduction thereof. So the amount of every bond executed under this chapter shall be fixed and due regard to the circumstances of the case, and shall not be excessive. So it will be regarding the circumstance of the case. It shall not be excessive, and it shall be fixed under this chapter. The High Court and the Court of Sessions may direct that the bail required by a police officer or magistrate be reduced. So it is the power of the High Court or the Court of Sessions to reduce the bail amount. Now section 441 talks about bond of accused and sureties. So before any person is released on bail or released on his own bond, a bond for such sum of money as the police officer or court thinks sufficient shall be executed by such person. So whatever that person is directed to furnish, that person will have to furnish when he is released on bail by one or more sufficient sureties, conditioned that such person shall attend at the time and place mentioned in the bond. So the person who is so furnishing the bond and shall continue so to attend until otherwise directed by the police officer or the court, as the case may be. Now where any condition is imposed for the release of any person on bail, the bond shall also contain the condition, and if the case is so required, then the bond shall also bind the person released on bail to appear when called upon by the High Court, Court of Sessions or other court to answer the charge. So he will also have to appear before the court to answer the charge. Now for the purpose of determining whether the sureties are fit or sufficient, the court may accept affidavits in proof of the facts contained therein relating to the sufficiency of fitness of the sureties. So the sufficiency of the sureties will be determined by the court by accepting affidavits for the proof of facts, or if it considers necessary, it may either hold an inquiry itself or cause an inquiry to be made by a magistrate subordinate to him as to the sufficiency or fitness. Now section 441A talks about declaration by sureties. So it says every person standing surety to any accused person for his release on bail shall make a declaration before the court as to the number of persons to whom he has stood surety including the accused giving therein all the relevant particulars. So every person who is wanting to become a surety for an accused person shall also make a declaration before the court that these are the number of person to whom he stood surety, including the accused, and he will also have to give relevant particulars. Now section 442 talks about discharge from custody. It says as soon as the bond has been executed, the person for whose appearance it has been executed shall be released, and when he is in jail, the court admitting him to bail shall issue an order of release to the officer in charge of the jail, and such officer on receipt of the orders shall release him. So as soon as the bond is executed, the person for whom it is executed shall be released, and it shall be forwarded to the officer in charge of the jail if he is in custody, and thereafter he will be released after the receival of such order. Now nothing in this section 436 or section 437 shall be deemed to require the release of any person liable to be detained for some matter other than in respect of which the bond was executed. So this section or section 436 or 437 shall not be applicable to any person who is to be detained in the custody for some other reason other than that for which the bond was executed. Now section 443 talks about power to order sufficient bail when that first taken is insufficient. So it says that if through mistake, fraud or otherwise insufficient sureties have been accepted, or if they afterwards become insufficient, so whatever may be the reason, now in the present case the surety has become insufficient. Now the court may issue a warrant of arrest directing that the person released on bail be brought before it, and may order him to find sufficient sureties, and on his failing so to do may commit him to jail. So the court will now direct him to either release that person on bail and find sufficient surety, or if he fails to do so, he will be committed to jail. Now section 444 talks about discharge of sureties. It says all or any sureties for the attendance and appearance of a person released on bail may at any time apply to a magistrate to discharge the bond, either wholly or so far as relates to the applicants. So all or any sureties for the attendance and appearance of a person who is so released in bail, he may at any time apply to the magistrate to discharge him from such bond, either wholly or as so far as relating to a particular applicant. Now on such application being made, the magistrate shall issue his warrant of arrest directing that the person so released be brought before him. So the magistrate can order such, and on the appearance of such person pursuant to the warrant or on his voluntary surrender, the magistrate shall direct the bond to be discharged either wholly or so far as relates to the applicants, and shall call upon such person to find other sufficient sureties, and if he fails so to do, may commit him to jail. So once that previous surety has discharged himself, then the person against whom such surety was standing, he will have to find a other sufficient surety, and if he fails to do so, he will be committed to jail. Now section 445 talks about deposit instead of recognizance. So when any person is required by any court or officer to execute a bond with or without sureties, then such court or officer may, except in the case of a bond for good behavior, permit him to deposit a sum of money or government promissory notes to such amount as the court or officer may fix in lieu of executing such bond. So basically what happens is that that person has to deposit a sum of money or a government promissory note, and that court or officer will fix that in lieu of executing such bond, and in that procedure such person is thought to have given sufficient surety. Now section 446 talks about procedure when bond has been forfeited. So where a bond under this code is for appearance and for production of property before a court, and it is proved to the satisfaction of the court or to any court to which the case has subsequently been transferred that the bond has been forfeited, or where in respect of any other bond under this code it is proved to the satisfaction of the court by which the bond was taken or by the court to which the case has been subsequently transferred, or the court of any magistrate of the first class, that the bond has been forfeited. Then in both of these cases the court shall record the grounds of such proof and may call upon any person bound by such bond to pay the penalty thereof or to show cause why it should not be paid. So the court will call upon that person who stood as a surety and he will be made to pay the penalty. Now explanation says that a condition in a bond for appearance or for production of property before a court shall be construed as including a condition for appearance. So a condition in bond for appearance or production of property before a court shall be construed as including a condition for appearance, or as the case may be for production of property before any court to which the case may subsequently be transferred. So it doesn't matter where the case goes, that bond will be executed by each of such courts. Now subsection 2 says that if sufficient cause is not shown and the penalty is not paid, the court may proceed to recover the same as if such penalty were a fine imposed by it under this code. So it will be recovered as a fine. Now provided that where such penalty is not paid and cannot be recovered in the manner aforesaid, the person so bound as surety shall be liable by order of the court, ordering the recovery of the penalty to imprisonment in civil jail for a term which may extend to 6 months. So in default of payment of such penalty, the person so bound as surety shall be liable to imprisonment in civil jail for a term which may extend to 6 months. Now the court may, after recording its reasons for doing so, remit any portion of the penalty mentioned and enforced payment in part only. So the court may do so that it may remit any portion of the penalty and enforce payment in part only. Now where a surety to a bond dies before the bond is forfeited, his estate shall be discharged from all liability in respect to that bond. Now where any person who has furnished security under section 106 or 117 or 360 is convicted of an offence, the commission of which constitutes a breach of the condition of his bond. So if he is found guilty of an offence or convicted of an offence after he has furnished a security under section 106, 117 or 360, and that constituted a breach of the condition of his bond or of a bond executed in lieu of his bond under section 448, then a certified copy of the judgment of the court by which he was convicted of such offence may be used as evidence in proceedings under this section against his surety or sureties. And if such certified copy is so used, the court shall presume that such offence was committed by him unless the contrary is proved. So, by providing a certified copy of the judgment of the court in which he was convicted may be used as an evidence in proceedings under this section or against his sureties, and the court shall presume that such offence was committed by him unless the contrary is proved. Now let's move on to section 446A that talks about cancellation of bond and bail bond. So without prejudice to the provisions of section 446, where a bond under this code is for appearance of a person in a case and it is forfeited for breach of a condition. So when the bond is forfeited for a breach of any of its condition, then in that case the bond executed by such person as well as the bond executed by one or more of his sureties in that case shall stand cancelled, and thereafter no such person shall be released only on his own bond in that case, if the police officer or the court, as the case may be, for appearance before whom the bond was executed is satisfied that there was no sufficient cause for failure of the person bound by the bond to comply with its condition. So that bond will be cancelled, that is clear. Now after that, if it appears before such person who executed the bond, before whom such bond was to be executed, he is satisfied, that court or that police officer is satisfied that there was no sufficient cause for failure of the person who was bound by the bond to comply with his condition. Still he failed to comply with it. Then he will not be released on his own bond. He will have to furnish other bonds. Now, provided that subject to any other provisions of this code, he may be released in that case upon the execution of a fresh personal bond for such sum of money and bond by one or more of such sureties as the police officer or the court, as the case may be, thinks sufficient. So it is the discretionary power of the court that whether that person will be released upon execution of a fresh personal bond or not, according to such sum of money as the police officer or the court may think sufficient. Now section 447 says that procedure in case of insolvency of death of surety or when a bond is forfeited. So when any surety to a bond under this code becomes insolvent or dies, so either he becomes bankrupt or he dies, then in that case when the bond is forfeited under this section 446, then the court by whose order such bond was taken or a magistrate of the first class, that court or magistrate may order the person from whom such security was so demanded to furnish fresh securities. So that person has become insolvent or that person has died. Now you have to furnish fresh securities in accordance with the directions of the original order. And if such security is not furnished, then the court or magistrate may proceed as if there had been a default in complying with such original order. Now, section 448 says that bond required from minor. So when the person required by any court or officer to execute a bond is a minor, okay, so the person who is to execute the bond is a minor. That means he is below the age of 18 years. Then such court or officer may accept in lieu thereof a bond executed by a surety or sureties only. So the court or officer may accept the execution of a surety. Now section 449 talks about appeal from orders under section 446. So all orders passed under section 446 shall be appealable. And in the case of an order made by a magistrate, the appeal shall lie to the sessions judge. And in the cases of an order made by the court of sessions, then the appeal shall lie before the court to which appeal lies from such court. Okay, so that will be the procedure for appeal against such orders. Now let's move on to the last section of this chapter, that is section 450. It talks about power to direct levy of amount due on certain recognizances. So the High Court or Court of Sessions may direct any magistrate to levy the amount due on a bond for appearance or attendance at such High Court or Court of Sessions. So the High Court and the Court of Sessions has such power of levying the amount that is due on certain recognizances. So that's all in this video. If you like my videos, then don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.